What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Tom Talks Rubbish. Before we kick off the 200th episode of Tom Talks Rubbish with the legendary WWE referee that is Jimmy Korderas, I just wanted to say thank you for all the support. It truly means the world to me, guys. I don't know where I'd be without Tom Talks Rubbish, and all of that is down to you guys. Thank you for all the support. Enjoy this interview with the legendary referee that is Jimmy Korderas.
Coming up on this episode of Tom Talks Rubbish.
Once I realized that I accomplished so much in my career that I was satisfied with, I was okay not going back. You know?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
if anybody's thinking about hanging them up or looking to do something different, make sure, like I said, you have no regrets and you're happy and you're content with what you accomplished, and always remember that as much as you love this industry, there's always something else. There's more to life than just wrestling.
What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Tom Talks Rubbish, and stand back with another interview. This time, I'm joined by a legend in the WWE wrestling community. And now, broadcaster, I'm joined by the one and only Jimmy Korderas. So welcome to the show.
No, thank you for having me, Tom. I appreciate it. I don't know about the legend thing, but I appreciate you saying it.
No, I'm really excited to chat with you, my friend. Before we get into any of your work, whether it be with WWE, wrestling in general, broadcasting with Huge Pop Radio, and reffing it up, where do you discover wrestling, Jimmy, as a fan?
Growing up here in Toronto, we had wrestling on weekends from everywhere. It was amazing. We would get Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling on the Buffalo affiliates, because we'd get our U.S. television stations from our Buffalo affiliates. So we'd get Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling on one channel. We'd get AWA Wrestling on another channel. We'd get WWF Wrestling on another channel. And of course, here in Canada, we had Maple Leaf Wrestling, which is the Tunnies, their promotion. But then every once in a while, you'd get little things like from a station in Barrie, Ontario, which is north of Toronto, we'd get Stampede Wrestling from Calgary. And then another station would have All-Star Wrestling from Vancouver. And then we'd have another station have International Wrestling from Montreal. So it was just nothing but wrestling on all weekend long. And I discovered it as a youngster and just gravitated towards it. And so it was the two things on weekends for us here in Canada. For me, it was wrestling and hockey night in Canada.
I was going to ask you about hockey. Did you grow up with a specific hockey team at all?
Of course, the Toronto Maple Leafs. And as I say today, at my age, I think the last time the Toronto Maple Leafs won the Stanley Cup was in 1967. And I'm one of the few people who still remember that.
That's really, really cool. Do they have another cup run in them, though, do you think?
They're starting to put pieces in place, but for some reason, when it comes to this playoffs, they just don't put it together. Last year, we had what I call the greatest false finish in hockey history, where they were down 3-1 to the Boston Bruins, their arch nemesis, and then they came back to tie it at 3 games apiece and went into the 7th game. And, it was 0-0 late in the third period when Toronto scored to take the lead 1-0. And my wife, I scared the living you-know-what out of her, because I screamed and thought, this is finally it. We're going to break the jinx against the big bad Bruins of Boston. And you know what? A few minutes later, they tied it up, and I went, oh, you got to be kidding me. And then it went to overtime, and then they broke my heart again.
Oh, what's more stressful for you now as a consumer? Is it watching hockey or is it watching wrestling?
I wouldn't call it stressful. I call it at times disappointing. I'm a hockey, again, for obvious reasons, because my favorite team, the Toronto Maple Leafs, haven't won a championship in so long. But as we're recording this, last night they did defeat our country mates, the Montreal Canadiens, soundly last night. So that at least has me happy. So I could brag about that for a little while to my friends in Montreal. But I I wouldn't call it stressful watching wrestling. I watch and I get entertained by a lot of stuff, but I see certain things that disappoint me
Mm.
and make me wonder. Growing up as an old school guy and seeing and learning from a lot of vets, I see things that make me go, I don't understand why they did that.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And I try to watch from two different lenses, if that makes sense, because as someone who's been in the business, I watch it from an analytical sense point of view and
Yeah.
also doing the broadcasting. But I try to sometimes just watch it as, put that away and just try and sit back and enjoy like a regular fan and try to take that out of my head. But sometimes when I see certain things, it's hard to do that,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
It totally does. Is it because how do I phrase this question? Is it because you know that, like, for lack of a better phrase, Jimmy, back in your day, these sort of things wouldn't have happened, for lack of a better word?
They would be discouraged, that's for sure.
Mm.
I see things, and I understand that the business evolves, and we try to elevate things in the business to a certain level, but at the same time, my analogy that I like to use all the time, that our industry, wrestling industry, is like the wheel. When the wheel was first created, it was made of stone because that's what they
Yeah.
used back in those days. Then to make it lighter, they made the wheel out of wood. And then
Hmm.
later on, it was rubber, vulcanized rubber, run flat tires. You've got all these incarnations. We have all season tires, snow tires, that sort of thing. There's all different variations of the wheel and the tire. But at the end of the day, the wheel is round because if you make it any other shape, it can't roll forward. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of times what they're trying to do, and again, in cliche terms, they're trying to reinvent the wheel
Mm.
and instead of trying to improve its performance, they're trying to change the shape, and it
Yeah.
doesn't work. Yeah.
I get what you mean.
Mhm.
So, what are some things currently, as we record this at the end of January in wrestling, that you're like, I really enjoy this? Like, you should check this out, guys.
I really enjoy, believe it or not, stuff they're doing in AEW. I appreciate the attempt at storytelling that they're doing. They are taking steps to improve that, but
Mm.
the problem I have is they don't take their time with it.
Hmm.
I'd like them to develop these stories. It always feels like they're in a rush to get through a story because they see that people are gravitating to it. They say, "Oh, we got to give them what they want." Yeah, you're going to give them what they want, but make them want more. Stretch it out. Make them anticipate things
Mm.
as opposed to. I'll give you a good example as we record this. I was skeptical when Tony Storm came back, and she wasn't the timeless Tony Storm character. Where
Hmm.
this character, where I guess, for lack of a better explanation, she doesn't remember that period, and she feels like she's a rookie
Yeah.
trying to prove herself all over again, and I thought at first I go, no, I don't know about this. And then as I started watching it, I'm going, you know what? This is brilliant. They've got something here. And then they recently had that gauntlet match to determine a number one contender. And right away they're into her versus Mariah May. This could have been stretched out over months.
Yeah.
And then, come to a fruition at a pay-per-view because um, that's, that's what it is. Storytelling. Like, yeah, I hate, and everybody says, "Oh, you're just a show for the WWE because you used to work for them." But what they're doing right now is working in their
Mm.
long-term storytelling and booking because the numbers do not lie.
Yeah.
And people take the TV rating numbers out of the equation because everybody likes to debate those and make excuses why this one is low and this one is this and this. My biggest barometer is how many butts are in the seats.
Yeah.
That doesn't lie right now. The WWE, with all the
I
machine
think they had
behind them,
13,000 for Raw this week, I think.
yes, 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 but they have that machine behind them, and you can say, well, their promotional department is incredible, and they've had a whatever 50-year head start. At the same time, why, with all their resources that AEW has, why aren't they putting that same effort into it? Does
Mm.
that make sense? Does that make kind of sense?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I do
Yeah,
understand what you're saying there.
I mean, people say, well, you don't want them to be like WWE. Fine, but you can take elements of what they do that works to help draw an audience and put your little twists on it because you're claiming to be the alternative, but alternative doesn't mean just be different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do
I'm
see
trying,
what you're
I'm going all over the map here, but
Oh, this is how my conversations go, dude. This is how they go.
okay. Okay.
So you talked about there the fact that you consume wrestling as a fan and as a broadcaster now. So how did it go from, okay, I'm not with WWE anymore. I'm going to get into broadcasting. How did that come about?
Well, it wasn't something like it wasn't a conscious effort. It was like once I left WWE, I had to decompress because all those years on the road, and you've probably heard the stories, up to 300 days a year on the
Oh
road.
yeah.
You're with the family, and the travel schedules were hectic. And this isn't. I'm not moaning. I'm not. You know what I mean? I was blessed to have a wonderful, job and a wonderful career there. And
Mm,
when that time came to an end, I had to decompress,
yeah.
and I had to. And then it was time to think. You know what? My wife and I were talking about retirement, and I said, "Yeah, you know what? We're okay. I
Mm,
think it's something we could do and take our time and give and just be together for a little bit." But then I still had that for a while. I wasn't watching wrestling. I kind of stayed
mhm.
away from it. And then when I started watching again, that little bug starts getting to you. And I said, I love it. If they only had those darn transporters like they do on Star Trek, I'd love to do it. But I can't do the travel schedule anymore
Mm,
because when I left, I was told that the door was always open for a return and just give them a call whenever I was ready. I think I was fulfilled with my career there. I was happy with what
mm,
I thought. Maybe there's a different path, and I got to know a fellow by the name of Ardo Cal, who
mhm.
worked at the Score Television Network here in Canada, who was broadcasting all the WWE television. They had their rights here in Canada, and he used to do a radio show after Raw on Sirius Radio here in Canada called Right
Mm.
After Wrestling. And he says, we do this little show and we talk about the show and we talk about the news and stuff like that. He says, do you want to pop on one Monday night and I said, yeah, sure. So you go to the studio, you watch the show, and then we pop on the radio and start talking about it. And we had fun doing it, and we became like best buds.
Yeah, yeah,
So he said, you know what, let's make this a weekly thing. So it became a weekly thing, and then it morphed into a television show. And as WWE's television rights deals moved, because the Score television got bought up by Sportsnet here in Canada,
yeah. Mm,
so they got the rights deals. They developed a show called Aftermath, which is a
mhm.
television show, which we were doing and it lasted for over 10 years, which is amazing. And like I said, I didn't consciously say I want to get into broadcasting, but I did think about it.
Yeah.
And then once I did the little stuff with Arda on the radio, I did take a course here in Canada at the Canadian Institute of Broadcasting just to freshen myself up and get myself familiar with what it's all about. And since then, man, all I do is talk now.
Mm. So you used to broadcast with a very good friend of mine, actually, Jack Farmer from Wrestling
Oh,
Inc. and
yes.
things like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
and something he told me when he's been on my show was you added a lot of credibility to podcasts because you've been in the game, for lack of a better word, if that makes sense. So, what does that mean to you to hear that, like, you've added credibility to shows?
Oh, that means a lot, especially coming from Jack. I mean, we rib each other a lot, like buddies do. It's what
Oh
you do.
yeah.
You kind of take jabs at each other. Eh, But Jack, I love his positivity.
Mm.
He always tries to look at the bright side of life. What was that old song? Always look on the bright side of life. Sorry, I'm doing a little karaoke
Thank
here,
you.
but
That's in my head now.
yeah, it'll stick with you for the rest of the day. Trust me. But he's a genuine good guy, and we had been broadcasting together on Wrestling Inc. for a long time, and then finally at WrestleMania this past year, WrestleMania 40 in Philadelphia, we finally got to meet face to face and in person, run the Rocky steps and
Mm-hmm.
do the whole bit. And the funny thing is, the first thing he says to me, he goes, "You know, you're taller than I imagined you'd be." And I said, "I'm like, okay."
I
But
suppose you must get that though, because you've been in the ring with big wrestlers. Do you know what I mean? I suppose you must get that. Oh, you're taller than I thought you'd be, maybe.
right, right. I'm about 5'10", 5'10 and a half. I don't know what that is in centimeters now. I have to do the conversion. But
I
5 foot
can't.
10 and a half. Yeah,
Mhm.
I know. I know. Even here in Canada, we have the metric system, and it still throws me off. But,
Mm.
uh, um, but yeah, when you're in the ring with guys like, especially guys like Big Show and the Great Khali and Mark Henry and Big Daddy Viss and all those guys, yeah, they kind of dwarf you. So,
Mm.
and also with the referee too. Not only are we that much shorter, but we stand back from them. So when they stand when they stand a little forward towards the hard camera, they look
Mm.
that much bigger. So
Yeah.
that's another little nuance that we do to make them look bigger is to step back. If
Mm.
it's yeah.
Is it like I believe this was a Vinceism. The backstage interviewers had to do the splits almost a lot of the time to make the wrestlers look taller, if memory serves correctly. Is that something similar?
Yeah, similar to that. I mean, that was. I mean, Vince used to have to do that because Vince was a big guy when he was
Mm.
doing the backstage interviews, and he would do that. Or in the old days when he'd be standing in front of the ring and have someone come in, he would do that. He would stand split-legged, kind of like to make himself look shorter, and that was his philosophy. And you notice throughout the years, there were very rarely. There's a few guys. There was like a Dick Kroll who was very tall, but
Mm.
uh, for some reason he thought referees should not look as big as the talent. And if you're bigger than the talent, that's not a good look because the wrestler's supposed to look tough. But at the same time, if you're an official in a contact sport, I look at UFC and stuff like that. I look at Herb
Mm.
Dean. I look at Big John McCarthy. They're big dudes. Okay.
Mm.
So sometimes you need a big guy in there to handle big guys.
Oh
So
yeah,
it kind
yeah.
of makes sense.
I totally understand what you're saying there. You brought up there that you couldn't do the travel schedule of WB anymore. So, what was like your routine when you was on the road, Jimmy, to get in that sort of zone to perform? Did you have like a routine before you went out for a match?
Okay. Not to correct you here. It's not that I couldn't do it. I just didn't want to do it.
Oh, fair enough. I misheard what you said. I do
No, no,
apologize.
no, no, but see, just to give you a regular routine for regular weeks when we weren't traveling overseas, because I was also doing double duty. I was on the ring crew as well, which was very beneficial for
Mm.
many reasons. Because when you're on the ring crew, you have all your perks taken care of. Obviously, the travel to fly to and from home is
Mm.
taken care of by the office for everybody. But if you're on the crew, you're designated to have your rental cars and your meal
Wow.
allowance and your hotels all taken care of. So you're not spending money out of pocket for those things where talent and others had to do that.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? So I was
Yeah.
making, I was, I'm thinking because a lot of times for a while there, they were saying, okay, you've been here a long time. Why don't you get off the ring crew? And I said, because I'm not stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look at
I
someone
understand that completely.
look at someone like Charles right now, Charles Robinson. He's still
He's
going as
still
long
on
as
the
he can
ring
do it.
crew, if memory
Yes,
serves.
God bless him for doing it. And there's a reason why he does it too. Not only that, but it also keeps him fit. Charles is one of the most fit people I know. He's really good. But
I've seen that
uh,
Sheamus video. Ay, ay,
yeah,
ay.
yeah. Getting back to your original question, though,
Sorry.
because I tend to drift a little bit. But on a regular week when we're not traveling overseas, I would leave on a Friday, and I'd try to ask the office to get me the latest possible flight out from home. And of course, for me,
Mm.
usually traveling to the United States, I would have to not only go through security at the airport, but go through customs
Mm.
to clear customs, which was a little longer. So I would fly out Friday evening. We'd have our first show, especially when the brand split happened. First show for SmackDown would be Saturday. We do a live event Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Tuesday, we would tape at the time our SmackDown show, and then we'd go back home on Wednesday. And again, I would ask them for the earliest flight to try and get home
Yeah,
as
yeah.
early as possible. And then I'd be home for half a day Wednesday, hopefully, and then all day Thursday, then leave again Friday again. So basically getting a day and a half to almost 2 days at home, but that was it. You'd have one
Mm.
full day at home though every week.
How would you, for lack of a better word, capitalize on that one day at home then, Jimmy?
Um, you try to maximize because you can't just sleep the day away and catch up because now you got to give time to your family. You know, you can't just curl up on the couch and just snore away. You have there's a lot of stuff around the house that needs to get done, and God bless your family for looking after that sort of thing. You know, my wife was fantastic. Like she allowed me to go out and live my dream for all those
Mm.
years. So, she held down the fort, and she made my workload at home when I got home as minimum as possible. So I really didn't have to just give time to her mostly.
That's really, really cool. What about now? Now that you're away from wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
we talked about off camera that you try and give as much time to your family as possible. But what does
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy do now that he's not on the road so much anymore?
Well, again, anything a normal person would do at home, a regular person would do at home with chores and stuff like that. But as far as because of the broadcasting stuff that I do watch a lot of wrestling. I try to
Mm.
keep up on everything. Um, and that's basically it. It's basically balancing life with wrestling. But
Mm.
I get the balance. There's a lot more balance now because I am at home, and all the broadcasting is able to be done from home, like we're doing right now.
Yeah.
It's so wonderful. I complain about technology, but at the same time, it's great.
Mm. Definitely. So you talked about their technology's great and things like that. What are some of your goals within the broadcasting side now? Do you have any goals of like, oh, I'd love to achieve this?
um, it's funny you said that because I just keep thinking about growing the current brands that you mentioned, the Refing It Up podcast
Mm.
and also Huge Pop Radio. I'm basically focusing on those two and trying to um, help both of those brands grow to whatever the maximum they can grow. And people are saying, well, you know, how do you do that? Just by putting a lot of time and effort into it and passion. I do have a
Mm.
passion for it because as as you have probably getting the gist right now, I do like to ramble on and talk a lot. It's just that I have to now measure it, especially when you're doing a radio show, which is a
Yeah.
structured time segments where you have 12 minutes here, you have 11 minutes here, you have 13 minutes here. You have to be able to condense what you want to say in like three sentences as opposed to 12,
Yeah.
but also try and get your point across. So I'm still it's always a work in progress. Nobody's ever perfect at it except my host Donnie De Silva. He's like the
Mm.
guy's just amazing. And then on Roughing It Up with Brian Hepner and now Daniel Spencer, who's the lead official
For
in TNA.
impact.
And yes, for congratulations to them for their deal as well.
Mm.
I just want to see our brands grow
Mm.
and not just for me, for the other guys too, because the other
Yeah.
guys are the ones who brought me aboard. And I'm whatever I can do to help, I want to help.
That's really, really cool. You seem to be someone that's made a great life for themselves, Jimmy, outside of wrestling once leaving WWE. Would you have
Mhm.
any advice for anyone that's like, okay, it's time to wrap up my in-ring career, either as a ref or as a superstar? What would your advice be to someone that's looking to wrap up their career physically?
Make sure they are ready to wrap
Hmm.
up their career. Make sure they're content with it and there's no regrets. Make
Mm.
sure you have no regrets. I mean, at first, like I said, the circumstances surrounding me leaving revolved around a parent's passing,
Mm.
and which kind of, was not a pleasant time. And
No.
like I said, I have this passion for wrestling that is still. I, I've told this story before, and you know, Bruno Sammartino said to me one time, of all the names, Bruno Sammartino just asked me. He asked me, Jimmy, do you really like this? And I had only been working for Jack Tunney for about I don't know 6 months, 8 months maybe.
Mm.
He said, how do you like working for Jack? And I said, I love it. He says, you really like it? I said, yes, sir, I really like it. He says, would you like some advice? And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, Bruno Sammartino. The living legend is going to give me some advice. This is incredible. Yes, sir. What is your advice? He says, get out. And I, what? He says, get out, because once it gets in your blood, it'll never leave you. And he's right. It's so infectious. And like I said, I was, once I realized that I accomplished so much in my career that I was satisfied with, I was okay not going back. You know?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
if anybody is thinking about hanging them up or looking to do something different, make sure, like I said, you have no regrets and you're happy and you're content with what you accomplished. And always remember that, you know, as much as you love this industry, there's always something else. There's more to life than just wrestling. Unfortunately, I'm not putting it down. I'm just saying,
I know what you mean.
There's other things out there, and I've luckily found those things. I've been fortunate throughout my whole entire life. For having great family, a great wife, and a great. I've not the Barry Horowitz, pat myself on the back, but a great. I think I have a great career, and like I said, I've been blessed.
You brought up your great career there, but no desire to go back, sort of thing. What if the Hall of Fame came calling? Would you be interested in that?
I think that's a no-brainer. Absolutely. How can you not? How can anybody not want to be a part of any Hall of Fame? I mean, especially a Hall of Fame that really, I mean, Timmy White is there, deservedly so, but he's in the Warrior wing, which I don't think discredits it anymore. Timmy belongs in the Hall of Fame. Teddy Long, for his work not only as a referee but as a manager and a gentleman in his entire body of work in professional wrestling, also belongs there. I think other referees belong there ahead of myself. I would put Dave and Earl Hebner 1A and 1B. Tommy Young, because I've seen that right now under this current regime, they are recognizing people outside of the WWF, WWE bubble. So I think someone like a Tommy Young definitely belongs in there. Like that for me is a no-brainer. But if they were ever to ask me, of course, I would absolutely accept wholeheartedly.
I got to ask you about one of my favorite matches you refereed, which is Edge versus The Undertaker at Mania 24. I'm sure you're asked about this all the time, but memories from that match, etc.
Oh, what can I tell you? Again, biggest memory from that match was I wasn't originally scheduled for that match.
No,
no, I wasn't. They had me slotted for the tables match at the time. I was kind of labeled the TLC ref, the guy who goes out there because there's a certain comfort level that the office has with certain referees for certain slots, and they felt comfortable with putting me in that situation because you have to constantly check on talent and make sure everybody's okay, because the risks in those kind of matches are really great. But about, I want to say it was a week or two before, I was in the locker room, we were at TV, and Edge walked up and he says, "Jimmy, how you doing? Could I talk to you for a sec?" I said, "Yeah, Edge, let's go." And he says, "Taker and I were talking, and we want you to ref our match at WrestleMania." I said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "But I'm not scheduled for that match." He says, "Don't worry, we can get it done. We'll get it changed." I said, "It's up to you guys if that's what you guys want." Absolutely. Then he brought me over to Taker, and Taker said, "Edge talked to you. You're cool with it?" I said, "You're asking me if I'm cool with it? I mean, this is the main event at WrestleMania. Of course I'm cool with it." And I just said, I'll just do my best to do, my best for you guys. And he said, "We know you will. That's why we want you there." And, right there, I was like, oh my goodness, I got choked up and I'm like holding it back. And then went through the match. We did the whole thing. And of course, the iconic run with Charles coming down and doing that perfect slide.
That was going to be my follow-up question, actually. It
was amazing. We'll get to that in a second. But when I got to the back, it's customary. You thank everybody for the match and stuff like that. And, Edge and I had a special relationship, us both being from the Toronto boys here in Canada. I thanked him and I was getting choked up and I was really fighting to hold it back because I didn't want people to see me so emotional. And then I went to thank Undertaker, and I said, "Taker, thank you so much for everything." He says, and he goes, "Were you cool with everything?" And I went, "Oh my God, you're asking? No, were you cool with everything?"
Mm.
He said, "No, everything was." He goes, "It was spot on." And that's I couldn't hold it back anymore. And he said, "Thank you for everything." And I, you know what? I said, if I never ref another match, I'm good. And that's when it kind of clicked in,
Yeah.
where I'm thinking to myself, if my career ended tomorrow, it's my in-ring career.
Mm.
How much better does it get than that? And
The
then,
main
yeah. So, what can I tell you? It was another blessed moment. Like I said, I don't know. It's just I could just rattle them off.
What you talked about rattling them off there. Before we do some wrap-up questions, I'm
Mhm.
curious to know your top 5 favorite matches, Jimmy, that you remember that you're like, these were my favorite that I got to referee.
Oh man. Okay, obviously you got to put that one number one.
Mm.
I'm going to tell you the opening match at SummerSlam 2002 was Rey Mysterio versus Kurt Angle.
Mm.
And a lot of people to this day argue that, if not one of the best opening matches for any
It's
pay-per-view.
definitely up there.
And, for me, that was a huge, huge favorite. Um, there's several matches with Eddie that were just, Eddie was another person. I loved working with Eddie. He was just so good. And the way he worked and incorporated the referees in a way that didn't make the referees shine. You know what I mean? The referee's job is not to shine too much and not be as overt where you notice them. And he was brilliant at being able to border that very, very closely, but still keep the focus on the match itself and the story being told. Okay. Eddie versus Kurt Angle. There's another one involving Kurt Angle. Would definitely be up. Edge versus Lance Storm was another SummerSlam match, an all Canadian matchup for the Intercontinental Championship. Definitely in there. And I'm going to put them all together because I was going to say the TLC match at WrestleMania 17, but I was between the Dudleys, the Hardys, and Edge and Christian. But I was blessed to be a referee for all three of their trilogy, so I'm going to put them all, lump them all together as as a favorite.
You brought up there being the ref for TLC 2. What was
Mhm.
your sort of reaction to, guys, I think this ladder might be a bit high, to that spear on the ladder, off the ladder sort of thing?
Well, the one off the ladder, or the one you're talking when Jeff was hanging off the?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, my two big concerns there, because if you notice, if just as Jeff was hanging there and Edge was getting prepped to spear him off the ladder, on the ground, on the mat, there was another ladder that was sitting on the ground, and I'm
I
trying
didn't
my
even
best.
notice that.
Yeah, I'm doing my best to pull it out of the way as far as possible because I didn't want anybody landing on it. And when I'm I'm not good with heights. I'm not saying I have a fear of heights. I'm just not comfortable on ladders and stuff like that. So watching him go up there, I'm just saying, oh God, oh guys, just please be safe, So that was the biggest thing. Hope everything went, and those guys are incredible. Incredible.
I understand what you're saying completely there. Just quickly before we wrap this up, I'm curious to know, how did reffing it up come about for you?
Oh, for me, well, Brian had been doing the show for a while with RJ. RJ is the producer and kind of the host. So, as I like to say, he's the glue that holds the show together. Because they had been doing the show for a little bit, and they were talking about apparently bringing in another voice. So Brian suggested me. So he contacted me, and Brian and I have been cool forever. Like I say, we're brothers in stripes for life. I don't know if I did that right,
I know what you mean.
He said, how do you feel about coming on and doing the show? I said, yeah, I'm game. Whatever you want to do, Again, whatever I could do to put stuff out there, and we developed a rapport. We developed a comfort zone, and we have lots of great guests on our show from not only just wrestling talent, but also people that were producers, people behind the scenes, we found Downstate on there who does the entrance music for Cody.
Yeah.
So our guests are a broad slate of guests, and we've got more coming up in 2025, which is fun. And now been doing that for almost 2 years with Brian, and he said, well, how do you feel about bringing Daniel Spencer aboard? Because when I would take little vacations or something like that, him and Brian trained Daniel Spencer.
Okay.
So they're very tight, and he's good with the technological side of broadcasting and stuff like that on YouTube and that sort of thing. So he says, well, how do you feel about bringing Daniel Spencer on and we'll have a threesome? I said, I'm fine with it because Daniel's a good guy. He's very knowledgeable, very smart, and talks very well. So why not? And that's what it is right now. There's the three of us. And again, RJ's still holding that glue together, and we're having a blast. And as long as the show's around, I think I'll be sticking around.
How do you balance, though, Jimmy, for that show? Everyone, to use a wrestling term, getting their S word in, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Oh, I know. It's tough. It's like almost like a three-man booth in wrestling where, you try not to talk over each other. Everybody trying to get their points across, whether they agree or disagree. It's always a work in progress, but I think we know each other enough where when somebody hears something, like I have a tell. It's like if somebody says something that makes me want to respond or reply or chime in, it's like and I'll do this, and then they know that, hey, okay, I've got something to reply with or something, instead of just jumping in. Hey, what do you mean? Can you hear that?
Only just.
Oh, okay, cool. He's speaking of trying to get their S in. Anyways, there's a pup. Anyway, so the little things like that. I like to do little hand signs, like even Brian picks up on it, and he'll do or something like this, and we know that, okay, wrap it up because somebody else wants to jump in and say something. But every once in a while, you have to just cut the other guy off, because like I'm doing right now, you tend to ramble a little bit and say, hey, whoa, wait a minute, hold on, because there are times where somebody will say something and they want to continue, but I want to mention something about that point that they just talked about.
Yeah.
And I'm one of these people that if you go too far, okay, what was that point I wanted to get back to and talk to him about? And you know what I mean? Because I'm one of those people that'll sit in my office watching something, and then they'll go to commercial break, and then I'll run down to the kitchen to get something. And then when I get to the kitchen, what the heck did I come here for? I don't remember anymore.
Is that too many ref bumps?
That's what I like to say. I'd like to blame it on too many ref bumps, but hey.
That's really, really cool. As we wrap this up, Jimmy, I have two questions for you before we do my sort of traditional questions. Do you view? We talked about how grateful you are for your career in wrestling and things. Do you view it as a success, though? And what do you think your legacy within wrestling is? Okay.
For me, it's a success because I got to accomplish something that very few people got to accomplish at a level that I did. And for me, that is a success. I will view it as a success for me, and other people could draw their own conclusions, but to me, it was a successful career. And as what my legacy will be, hopefully that the people that I worked with and my colleagues found me to be not only a good comrade, but also someone they could trust in any situation. You can put me in any spot, any match, anywhere, and not have to worry about, will I be in the right position? Will I, someone that they can count on. And I believe that I accomplished that. I think that if you speak to almost everybody that I got to work with throughout my career, they'll tell you that that I was reliable. And that's what I want to be, because the referee's job, as I always say, is to help the talent tell their story. They are the story. I have never drawn a ticket in my life. Nobody has ever paid a ticket to see me. The only people that came to see me are friends and family, and I got them comps. So,
yeah.
So, like I said, grateful, and I've talked to many old friends and old colleagues, and and they've been more than kind with their words, and I appreciate those words, and they mean a lot. So uh, trust me, I don't take them lightly. I take them to heart very much.
That's really, really cool, Jimmy. As we wrap this up, we are going to do a very quick segment that is called Generic Wrestling Questions. Those of you that have seen my interviews before, and I swear I'll ask Jimmy his favorite match he might have seen as a fan or within wrestling, his favorite overall pay-per-view card, if he can give me one of those, favorite wrestler's entrance theme, favorite tag team, and his favorite wrestler to watch perform. Basically, the questions I assume you're asked on social media or on your podcast, so now you'll have a place to be like, guys, I have answered this. Please go watch this. So, what's your favorite match of all time?
Wow, my favorite match of all time to watch as a fan.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I was refereeing at the time, I went and watched this out in the arena, and I think you know where I'm going here. WrestleMania 18.
Mm-hmm.
The Rock and Hulk Hogan, Hollywood Hogan, not Hulk Hogan, Hollywood Hogan. Because what I did was Mike Chioda was the referee for the match, but when this match went out, I snuck out into the tech area inside the stadium, inside the Sky Dome here in Toronto, to watch it, you know, with the crowd. And what the funny thing was, when I looked behind me back towards where the curtain was, a whole bunch of the talent had come out as well.
Yeah.
And we're watching it from there because everybody wanted to feel. And you could, this isn't a match as far as technical ability goes, and I'm not talking about 5-star matches, but the atmosphere that these guys had. And when you talk about the stadium shaking, it was literally rumbling. And that was amazing. So from that standpoint, I will say that was one of my favorites, and Steamboat Savage from WrestleMania 3.
That's really cool.
Okay. And the next one is?
What about your favorite overall pay-per-view card, such as, for example, SummerSlam 92, for example.
Which was a good one, but for me, I really have to go with WrestleMania 17.
Mm-hmm.
I think from top to bottom, it delivered. It was, of course, you know, highlighted by that TLC match with the Dudleys and Edge and Christian and the Hardys. But everything on that card was. I don't think the fans sat down the entire night.
No.
Yeah.
Like, what about your favorite wrestler's entrance theme?
This is going to shock a lot of people. The most fun one, because I just recently got to chat with him, Ernest the Cat Miller, was Somebody Call My Mama.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, because any music that gets, I know he's a dirty word right now, Vince McMahon. Anybody who sees can have their entrance music play and him to get up from behind his desk and start dancing, which is not. It's not a pretty sight, but still, it's kind of like watching Elaine dance on Seinfeld. But his music was so much fun. But if you want like real, you know, man, there's so many good. If you're gonna tag team entrance music,
we can do that.
Different. Yeah, tag team entrance music. I'm gonna go with the New Age Outlaws.
As somebody that's probably been in the ring when they're making their entrance, what's that crowd reaction like when they're playing along, for lack of a better word?
See, that's the thing. See, the opening words coming out for the entrance music is, "Oh, you didn't know?" As soon as they start, everybody in the audience comes up with the next line. You better call somebody. You know, they're all doing it. So people don't understand the importance. Some people don't. A lot of people do, but some people don't understand the importance of someone's entrance music, because that's the first thing you hear are the chords of their song, and they need to be something where people are going to recognize it right out of the gate. You know, like very few times you get guys like with the glass breaking, you get the gong, you know, but that needs to be the first thing that the people can gravitate to and go, oh, now I know who's coming out, as opposed to, oh, wait a minute, whose music is that? You know, that's the reaction you don't want. Wait, who is that again? What?
I get what you're saying completely there. What about your favorite tag team, Jimmy, to watch work?
Again, I'm going old school with this one, but Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood, when they were part of the Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, and they were the NWA or Mid-Atlantic Tag Team Champions. Those guys were fantastic, and Ricky Steamboat is my idols always.
Mm. That's really, really cool. And then finally, Jimmy, the biggest generic question, in my opinion: who was your favorite wrestler to have work with in the ring, or just favorite wrestler overall?
For favorite wrestler to work with in the ring, with all due respect to everybody I got to work with, Eddie Guerrero was my absolute favorite. He was just, his intensity, you could feel it when he was getting a little bit perturbed, but at the same time, he was just on a different level. His mind working all the time. He was one of those guys where if I was assigned his match, which I was a lot, I would walk in and say, "Okay, Eddie, what are you doing?" He says, "We're doing frog splash finish." "Okay, anything else?" He says, "No, we'll call it out there." Okay. Instead of this, here. But he would let you know ahead of time. And sometimes you wouldn't know, and he'd just utilize you in a different way. But Eddie was just magic. And I don't think he gets mentioned enough when you talk about greats.
I don't either, if I'm being honest. I think he's definitely on my Mount Rushmore. But as we wrap this up, Jimmy, obviously I want to say thank you for a great conversation. But the question I end this show on is, I believe, particularly someone in your case who worked for WWE, we're all sort of going to live forever in a very, very weird way. So what is one match you're like, I'd like to be remembered for that? And then what is one that you're like, nah, please forget about that, guys?
One I'd like to be remembered for? Trying to pick one. I guess. Do I take the easy way out and say the WrestleMania 24 match with Edge and Undertaker?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How does it get much bigger than that? I mean, it's the main. It's like getting to referee the Super Bowl or the World Cup Finals or anything like that. I mean, there's no bigger plateau you can reach as in that profession. So I would have to say that. And the second part was again. I'm sorry.
Is there any that you're like, nah, I don't remember that, guys. I don't enjoy talking about that one.
There was, although I had a lot of fun doing them back in the day, there was a few that involved, God bless her, Mae Young and the Fabulous Moolah that people keep putting online, and I'm like, if they notice it was a younger Jimmy Korderas refereeing a lot of their stuff because for some reason, Miss May and Moolah were very comfortable with me, so they were like, they like having fun with me. They like to rib me a little bit too while we were in there. So some of those are kind of forgettable for me, I would think. But at the same time, they're kind of like, it's okay. We had some fun.
I understand what you're saying completely there. As we wrap this up, Jimmy, obviously I want to say thank you for a great conversation. But please promote yourself. Where can the good people find you, your work, etc.?
All right. You can find me on Twitter at Jimmy Korderas, on Instagram at Real Jimmy Korderas. You can, the Refnet Up podcast with my good brother in stripes, Brian Hebner, and Daniel Spencer, and RJ, who holds the glue together. You can find those on any platform you find your podcasts on. We have a lot of fun. We have a lot of great guests. And also you can find myself and my good buddy Donnie De Silva with Huge Pop Radio, which is on TSN Radio here in Canada, but it's also available on iHeartRadio and other podcast platforms. And on my social media platforms, I like to do a little thing I call my Ref and Rant, which is Monday through Fridays, usually just a little minute or so video, which a little critique here and there. I know people take them too seriously, but it's little things I like to see, maybe some screws tightened, a little critique. It doesn't hurt anybody. It's not meant as hate. It's meant as, like I said, a constructive
criticism. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's one of the problems today. People see anything you critique anything, you're labeled a hater. It's not. No, I don't hate. I just,
I understand. I understand what you're saying completely there. So if you guys like this, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. It's Tom Talks Rubbish on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter or X at Tom Talks Rubbish, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye now.
Thanks for watching this Tom Talks Rubbish conversation. Before you go, please make sure you leave a like on the video, share it around, and subscribe to Tom Talks Rubbish on YouTube, as well as follow Tom Talks Rubbish on Twitter/X.